The Galactic Council had declared the Valorian system a lost cause 3 standard cycles ago. The decision came after 17 failed attempts to break the Draxan siege. Every major species in the Coalition had sent their finest warships, their most advanced weapons, and their most brilliant strategists. All of them had retreated with broken fleets and shattered confidence. Commander Kethra stood at the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the distant planet below burn under Draxan bombardment. Her blue scales had lost their shine weeks ago. The weight of failure pressed down on her shoulders like a mountain. Behind her, the remaining survivors huddled in crowded shelters, waiting for an end that seemed inevitable. The Valorians were a peaceful species. They had never developed weapons beyond basic defense systems. Their contribution to the galaxy was art, music, and philosophy. Now, their beautiful crystalline cities lay in ruins. Their libraries burned. Their children cried in the darkness of underground bunkers. Kethra had begged the Council for more help. She had sent message after message, describing the horrors happening below. The Draxan were not just conquering. They were erasing. Every trace of Valorian culture was being systematically destroyed. The Council's response had been cold and final. Resources were limited. The war on other fronts demanded attention. The Valorian system would have to be sacrificed for the greater good. She understood the logic. She hated it, but she understood. The Draxan Empire stretched across 4 sectors. Their insectoid warriors numbered in the billions. Their hive mind allowed them to coordinate attacks with perfect precision. Fighting them was like fighting a single organism with 1 trillion bodies. The last supply ship had left yesterday. It carried those too sick or too young to stay. Kethra had chosen to remain with the soldiers who refused to abandon their posts. They were not many. Perhaps 300 warriors from various species, all volunteers who had decided that dying here was better than living with the knowledge that they had run away. Her communication officer, a young Talari with silver fur, approached her hesitantly. His large eyes were filled with something Kethra could not immediately identify. It was not fear. She had seen plenty of fear in recent days. This was different. "Commander," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "we are receiving a signal." Kethra did not turn from the window. "Another council message telling us to evacuate?" "No, Commander. It is from outside the blockade. A ship requesting permission to enter the system." That caught her attention. She turned, frowning. "A ship? Singular? Do they not see the Draxan fleet surrounding us?" "They see it, Commander. They say they are coming through anyway." "What species?" The young officer swallowed hard. His fur stood on end, a clear sign of extreme stress among his kind. "Human, Commander. The ship is human." The word hung in the air like a curse. Kethra felt her blood run cold. Humans, the hazardous species. She had heard the stories, of course. Everyone in the galaxy had heard the stories. The Council classified them as Category 7, the highest danger rating possible for a sentient species. They were banned from most civilized space. Their territory was quarantined. Their expansion was monitored with constant surveillance. "1 human ship," Kethra repeated slowly, "against the Draxan fleet. They will be destroyed before they pass the first defensive line. Commander, they are not just 1 ship anymore. I am detecting additional jump signatures. 5 ships. 10. 20. Commander, there are now 47 human vessels entering the outer edges of the system." Kethra rushed to the tactical display. The holographic map showed the Draxan fleet as a red cloud surrounding the inner planets. And there, at the edge of the display, a cluster of blue dots was appearing one after another. The human ships varied wildly in size. Some were small, barely larger than shuttles. Others were massive, their silhouettes ugly and angular compared to the elegant curves of council vessels. The Draxan responded immediately. A portion of their fleet broke away from the main group, moving to intercept the intruders. Kethra counted at least 200 warships in the response force. The humans were outnumbered 4-1. "They are insane," she whispered. "They will be slaughtered." What happened next would haunt Kethra's S-dreams for the rest of her life. The human ships did not attempt to maintain formation. They scattered in all directions, moving with a chaos that seemed almost random. The Draxen, used to fighting enemies who moved in predictable patterns, struggled to coordinate their attack. Their hive mind needed time to process the senseless movements of their opponents. That hesitation cost them dearly. The first human ship to engage was a medium-sized cruiser with the words, "Bad Decisions," painted on its hull. It flew directly at the Draxen command vessel, ignoring the smaller ships trying to intercept it. Weapons fire tore at its shields, but it did not slow down. When it was close enough to touch, the human ship launched something. Not missiles, not energy weapons. A boarding pod. The Draxen had never faced boarding actions. Their ships were designed to fight at range, using overwhelming numbers to destroy enemies before they could get close. The concept of soldiers physically entering an enemy vessel was barbaric, unthinkable, inefficient. The humans clearly did not share this opinion. Within minutes, reports flooded the communication channels. Human soldiers were inside the Draxen command ship. They were fighting hand-to-hand in the corridors. They were using crude projectile weapons that tore through Draxen exoskeletons like paper. They were setting fires. They were causing explosions. They were laughing. Kethra listened in horror as the Draxen hive mind filled the radio frequencies with something she had never heard from them before. Panic. Pure, unfiltered panic. The Draxen command ship exploded. The blast took out 3 other vessels that had moved too close. And the human cruiser, somehow still intact, was already moving toward its next target. The other human ships had engaged by now. Their tactics were nothing like anything the Draxen had faced. One ship pretended to be damaged, drifting helplessly until Draxen vessels came to finish it off. Then it came alive, destroying 6 enemies in rapid succession before they could react. Another human ship rammed directly into a Draxen cruiser, embedding itself in the larger vessel's hull and then releasing what could only be described as an army of small drones that began tearing the ship apart from the inside. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Draxen response force was completely destroyed. The human fleet had lost 8 ships. 39 human vessels remained, and they were already moving toward the main Draxen force. Kethra's hands were shaking as she opened a communication channel to the human fleet. The face that appeared on her screen was that of a human female. She had dark skin, short gray hair, and a scar that ran from her forehead to her jaw. Her eyes were hard and tired, the eyes of someone who had seen too much death. "This is Commander Kethra of the Valorian Defense Coalition," Kethra said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Who are you?" The human smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Admiral Sarah Chun, United Human Navy. We heard you folks needed some help. The Council abandoned us. They said no help would come. Yeah, well, we're not exactly the Council's favorite people. They told us to stay out of this. Said it wasn't our concern." Admiral Chun's smile widened slightly. "We disagreed. Why? The Valorians have no alliance with humanity. We have never even met your species before today. Why would you risk your ships, your people, for strangers?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Because someone has to. Because giving up on people just because saving them is hard is not something we do. And because those Draxen bastards killed 3 human colonies 15 years ago, and we've been waiting for a chance to pay them back." Kethra felt something she had forgotten existed. Hope. It was small and fragile, like a flame in a storm, but it was there. "Can you win?" she asked. "The main Draxen fleet has over 1,000 ships." Admiral Chun looked off-screen for a moment, receiving some report that Kethra could not hear. When she turned back, Her expression had changed. It was fierce now, hungry. "Commander, I've got 12 more fleets jumping in over the next 2 hours. Another 60,000 soldiers are waiting to drop onto the planet and help your people push back the ground forces. And I just received word that the Draxan home sector is currently under attack by a coalition of species who decided that if humanity was willing to fight, they could stop hiding too." Kethra stared at her, unable to speak. "We're not here to just win this battle," Admiral Chung continued. "We're here to end this war. The Draxan have terrorized this galaxy for too long because everyone was too afraid to truly fight back. Well, humanity isn't afraid. We never learned how to be. Fear is just another thing we punch in the face until it stops bothering us." The following weeks became known in galactic history as the Turning. Human ships carved through the Draxan fleet with relentless aggression. Human soldiers landed on the burning Valorian surface and fought beside the desperate defenders. Human doctors treated the wounded. Human engineers helped repair broken shelters. Human civilians who had stowed away on military vessels handed out food and blankets to refugees. The Draxan could not understand what was happening. Their hive mind calculated the odds, analyzed the strategies, and could not find logic in human behavior. The humans took wounds that should have killed them and kept fighting. They protected strangers with the same ferocity they would use to protect their own families. They refused to retreat, even when retreating was the sensible choice. 3 months after the first human ship entered the Valorian system, the last Draxan forces surrendered. The insectoid empire, which had seemed invincible for centuries, collapsed as species across the galaxy rose up, inspired by humanity's example. Kethra stood on the surface of Valoria for the first time in almost a year. The crystalline cities were gone, but her people were rebuilding. Human construction teams worked alongside Valorian craftsmen, learning the ancient techniques needed to grow the crystal structures. Admiral Chun walked up beside her, hands in her pockets, looking at the sunset painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. "Your council is very angry with us," the Admiral said casually. "They're demanding we return to our quarantine zone. Something about destabilizing the galactic order. Will you go?" Admiral Chun laughed. It was a real laugh this time, full and warm. "Probably not. We've gotten a lot of invitations to visit from species who used to be too scared to talk to us. Turns out being willing to help people changes their opinion of you. The council called you hazardous," Kethra said quietly. "They said humanity was too dangerous to be allowed among civilized species. We are dangerous," Admiral Chun admitted. "We're stubborn, aggressive, and we never know when to quit. We pick fights we shouldn't be able to win and somehow win them anyway. We're absolutely terrible at accepting that something is impossible." She looked at Kethra with those hard, tired eyes. "But dangerous doesn't mean evil. It just means we're the kind of allies you want when everything goes wrong." Kethra nodded slowly. She understood now why the Council feared humanity. It was not their weapons or their ships or their strange, chaotic tactics. It was their refusal to accept defeat. It was their ability to look at a hopeless situation and see it as a challenge instead of an ending. The hazardous species had arrived when everyone else abandoned hope. And they had reminded the galaxy that hope itself was never truly lost. It just sometimes needed someone stubborn enough to fight for it.